Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about the Queen's Gambit Season 1. I mean, it's only a miniseries, but whatever. Episode 2 is called Exchanges. So full spoilers for the episode as always. People seem to like that we started this show, so we're back. And obviously it was good enough that we wanted to watch some more of it. And episode 2 starts more or less right after. I mean, not like as she fell to the ground, but she's still a kid, and then we transition to a little bit later, timeline-wise, after a couple of scenes. A little setup before we actually go to Anna Taylor-Joy. Although her age is a bit... They claim she's 13, but she does imply that they're lying about that, and she's actually a little bit older. But
well, I had the subtitles on, so I was able to tell she was starting to say 15.
Okay. That's less of a stretch, because when I was looking, I was like, are you really trying to pass me off as Anya Taylor-Joy is 13?
I was going to say the same. When I said 13, I was like, oh, this is a bit much. And then when like 15, I was like, I've got one then, I guess.
All right, we'll go with it. I mean, we don't want another actor, I suppose, so it's fine. I get why the choice was made. It's just, but there was a moment where I was like, 13?
Yeah, I was the same for a second. I was like, okay, no, if you're telling me she's 13, you needed another actor in the middle.
If that was meant to be her, if it was her at 13, then who am I playing in a movie? Someone at 16? Like, what?
Being very generous to yourself there.
Well, that was the point. That was the joke. It was.
No. Even still, you're being generous.
Oh, shut up. I mean, what? I bet the scale from her real age to 13 is probably similar to the scale of my real age to...
It probably is. I don't know how old she is, to be honest.
16-year-old.
It can't be.
96.
That.
She's only 7 years younger than me. So... Yes. My point remains.
Only 7.
Anyway, alright, so first thing we have to address about this is... Episode 1, we got comments. Apparently, I just assumed Beth was a real person because it said, I'd heard true stories, things like that. Turns out she's an amalgamation of a bunch of different chess wizards, and she's a fictional character from a book that was sort of combined all these real people into something. Yeah,
I think it's a testament to the show and the style that it's going for, in that we just assumed this was some sort of biographical thing. Because it's just like, it feels like it, and not in a bad way, because I think that was very clearly it has that sense of realism in that this all could have happened. We talked about there was some heightened moments, but it all felt mostly plausible.
Yeah. So I mean, it's interesting getting into it now with that. It makes me sort of look at the way they're using the pills and her like chess vision. Even if it's still loosely based on, some chess players say the pieces. It makes me think of Tetris players who say that they're in the shower and they see like Tetris pieces go down the shower curtain. There's a name for it, actually. I think it's just the Tetris effect.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Where you just start seeing blocks. And sometimes like a year or two ago when Tetris Effect came out and I was playing it like every day for like a couple of months, there was times where you sometimes kind of start to think about blocks. It's like a weird thing in your brain.
I do it with the music a lot, where Tetris music is a great example, actually, where the original I would play it for when I was on the like Game Boy, whatever it was, for like 6 hours for like 3-4 days in a row, and then I would be doing something completely unrelated, and I would just start hearing it. Like it wasn't playing, it was just in my head, but it would sound like it was coming from something. Yeah,
obviously, so it's still heightened, but certainly it makes me look at some of these different things. I did laugh a little bit, though, because something, I think we joked in the first episode about something that happened in this episode later on.
We did, yeah. We definitely spoke about it happening and how they would handle it. Yeah,
we joked about getting our first period in the middle of a chess game, and technically it was right after the chess game, but same difference. She's sitting at the table, and she has to run off to the bathroom. And it thematically makes sense, because we're exploring our coming of age, our sexuality, all these things. But it did make, I actually kind of laughed a little bit, not because there was anything funny about the scene, but because we talked about it. So it almost came off as like a weird cliche, but only a cliche because we made it a cliche ourselves before we got to the episode.
Yeah, I actually think they handled it really well.
Yeah, it was.
Because there was no like, I felt there's often a temptation of these things, especially when it's a period piece. No pun intended. I realised that after I said it. God damn it.
That's...
Oh. I promise you I didn't mean that. As soon as
Don't worry.
after I said it.
I completely believe that you could never intentionally be that funny. I fully believe it.
Yeah, that's true. What I was going to say is there's a temptation for them to often, pretend like, they don't know what's happening, and play it like that. Whereas she does. She knows what's happening. She just wasn't expecting it, obviously, because it's her first time. So there's no warning.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense if you don't know what's happening, if you're having it early. If you have it like around age, like what she was in the first episode, if she got her first period at age 9, I'd buy that she didn't know what it was. But she's been living in an orphanage, an all-girls orphanage, for the last 4 years.
She must have known. Yeah.
She's seen the sex ed film reels.
6 years if she's 15.
Oh, true. Yeah, I was thinking she was 13.
And that's such a point, because this is on the later end of the scale, right? 15.
Oh yeah, this is late. This is it's mentioned in the episode, but it's very late.
It is, but that's something that I don't know how much you know, but there's biological factors like how much food you have in your life. Like if you don't have the enough calories on a regular basis, your body will actually essentially put it off until later. And I'm not saying that the orphanage were mistreating them or feeding them less, but I wonder if just by their nature they were getting less food than someone who was more well off, and that would explain why it's later.
I think someone who lives with a family and gets a lot more snacks and stuff growing up than someone in an orphanage who has a strict 3 meals a day schedule who doesn't really get a lot of other things. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
That makes some sense. So that happens. But I think we jump ahead. She gets adopted. Quite a late adoption. Again, they lie about her age a little bit, but it's still late. Even a 13-year-old's. You think of parents who are coming to adopt a kid, looking for someone who's young. Because if they can't conceive, usually they want someone who's as close to a baby age as they can, because they want to have the full experience, so as close to it as possible.
Yeah, once they're at this age, it tends to be more fostering than adoption.
Yeah. Which does lead to the question of, okay, so what is their motivation? Why are they looking for a child about this age? Why do they want a kid? And I think that leads into some of the characters, some of which is left fairly ambiguous in the episode as to exactly. We know they lost a child, as we find out at one point.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if when they lost child, if the child would have been around 13 by now.
Yeah,
because they mentioned that they specifically wanted an older child. That would make sense to me.
Alternatively, it could be a simple case of the child died at the age of 6, so they wanted to be far removed from like the type of child they lost.
Comparisons.
Yeah. So. It's left fairly open, at least so far. Maybe it'll be delved upon a little bit more as we go. But we have her being adopted, we have her going off. There's a really nice little moment with her friend actually, where she apologizes for being adopted and leaving, and she doesn't get to go anywhere, and she pretends that she's okay with it, but she turns around and she just does a quiet moment when she's just looking away from her on the bed, and you can just tell it's kind of breaking her up inside, and she's pretending to be strong and not care, but clearly this is a factor. What I like though about the early part of this episode is that she's flat out just not allowed to play chess anymore because of what she did. Because she snuck into the medical cabinet and she tried to down herself with pills. Almost, I don't know if she actually did almost die technically, but presumably spent some time in a hospital bed as a result of this. And it's like, no, you don't get to play chess. And there's a great scene where she goes up to, it's before we transition, she goes up to Mr. Scheibel when he's fixing a light, and it's like, hey, they don't want me to play chess anymore, can you help me? And you can tell that he's had conversations with the people at the orphanage, and it's like, yeah, you have to leave her alone, you can't encourage her, she has to be disciplined for this. And
it seems it's harsh to say, chess is the one thing she likes and they're taking that away from her. It sounds bad, but it makes sense. There is some level of punishment.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily something that should be forever though, because we get to the point where she's 15. It's like, wait, did they never let her play a game of chess for another 6 years?
I don't know if that's the case. I'm not sure if she hasn't played in all those years. It's a bit vague.
Because I did like kind of the slow, like her try to get her way back to chess. She goes to the house, gets her bedroom, blah blah blah. But when she goes to school, she asks someone there, "Is there a chess club?" She's taken to buy some new clothes because she's just got her orphanage clothes, and she sees like a chess set, like a little display, and she's like, "Oh, there's chess sets. Can I get a chess set?" And it's always like she's trying to find her way back to it, and she eventually steals a magazine out the store because she has no money to pay for it. The husband's disappeared at this point. And the husband, who didn't seem to like her very much in the first place, is ran off. That becomes clear as the episodes went on, and they're struggling for money. So she actually sends a letter to Mr. Scheibel to ask for the $5 entry fee for a local chess tournament. The idea being that if she wins, she'll pay him back with interest, and she gets to play.
she'll give him $10 no matter how much she wins.
Yeah. And if I was him, I'd have put a note saying, no. If you win the first prize, I want more than 10. No, I want percentage here. Come on, let's not skimp
very, very greedy of you
on your tutor. Greedy? I think she's been greedy.
He's doubling his money.
It's an investment. It should be paying off if she's going big with it.
Doubling is paying off. That's a solid first investment.
Yeah. Well, clearly the foster mother's going to be earning from it, given the end of this episode and where it might be going. But
can you blame her?
But no, it's just we have this tournament. This is kind of what a lot of episodes builds up. We get her obviously in high school, how she is around the other girls. They all think she's weird and quiet, and her clothes aren't cool enough, and stuff like that. And at first she's very awkward about it, but later on in the episode you sort of see that she is very strong-willed, because when it gets to the point where they try to say something to her, she just tells them to F off. She starts not giving a shit by the time we get so far in. But she's looking for chess books in the library. She's looking for stuff. When she does win the money from the chess tournament, she goes and buys a bunch of chess books and her own chess set. And
you can tell it's like one of the a cheap one, because it's not like a proper board. It's like a fabric roll-up one.
I think
travel set.
Yeah, I think she appreciates the travel aspect of it. I think she wants to be able to just
quite possibly, but I think
she wants to take that as skill so that during lunch she can just whip out her chess set and start.
It's very possible
processing her chess. But the tournament itself, obviously, is the big set piece of the episode, and it is very satisfying watching all these douchebags who assume she's going to get kicked out in the first round slowly realize that she's like a force to be reckoned with, because the two guys at the front are like, oh, what's your rating? Like, I have a rating. What's the rating? It's like, oh, beginners then. No, I don't want to be the beginners.
So what's the maximum price for beginners? $20? No. Put me in the open one.
Yeah, put me in the open one. And there's like one other girl, and they put her with her, and this other girl's very nice and explains some of the things she doesn't understand. She's never used a chess clock before, the touch rules, all that kind of stuff. She explains all these things that she's not encountered yet, and she's very pleasant to her. And they comment on the fact that they've been shoved together. Not supposed to be put together because of the two girls, but clearly that's what's happened anyway. And there's a moment after she wins the game where she ends up walking to like the best two players that are playing in the first round. And there's this sort of older guy who she's kind of clearly attracted to, who's, looked at her a couple of times and been friendly enough. And they're watching this, the game, and it's one of the guys is like the state champion or whatever, is the biggest dog they've got on the tournament. And at one point he turns around and says shh when she's talking.
She is talking a bit loud, yes.
Yeah. And it's kind of this, oh, okay. And then he wins the game, and it's okay, right. But it's obviously building up to her facing him. And
I love this because I think this is a great part of casting, is because the guy we're talking about who's the champion is Dudley Dursley. No, I'm going to try that again. My mouth's not working properly. But from Harry Potter, basically, and very punchable face. He's built a career on being the douchebag, and intentionally, I think, because he plays to that strength, and I think it's good casting when they're doing it here, where he's just like, you want to see him be beaten the whole time, regardless of anything else.
Well, when she actually plays him, because even before we get that, the two guys at the front who take in the slips and stuff, they're shocked that she's turning hers in so quick after the first game, but secondly, when it gets to the second batch of matches, and that she's kind of like, wait, I'm only facing this 1600 guy. What about the 1800 guys that are in the tournament? It's like, you'll get to them if you beat these guys, but you're not going to beat them. They're too good. It's not going to happen. And I love that the episode almost just glosses over it. Like, of course she beats them. Is that even a question? And the only moments you suspect that maybe she's been challenged for the first time since she started learning is maybe in the final match, but there's a couple of moments where she's kind of looking down at the board and it feels like, maybe she's actually starting to feel a little bit of the pressure, like there's a little bit of this here. And she is, because she runs off to the bathroom and pops some of those pills. We'll get back to how the pills get back out of the picture, but yeah, I loved the sound effects they added in every time the guy yawned, because he was really doing it disgustingly as possible. He's like, oh, I'm just bored, this is not
And
riveting
he
game.
shows up late, comes in with a coffee, and he's like, "Oh, I'm half asleep. Let's just get this over with." He's not taking it seriously.
So he's lost time as well. So the clock is ticking when he comes in. He's sacrificed some of his 90 minutes without caring.
But he's not the only one that's like this as well. There's a guy before who, after every move, combs his hair in a really annoying way.
That's right. This douchebag who has to be super cool after every move.
Yeah.
I'm the bad boy at chess.
It's almost like a nervous tick, though, the way it plays it, where every time he does it, he has to brush his hair.
Yeah, but every time it just cuts back to her and she's just getting more and more frustrated. Like, oh my god, it's fine if it takes time, because obviously sometimes chess is about thinking about your move and try to plan, and sometimes you take a long, I mean, these are 90-minute limits. Some people have 10-hour games of chess and
right.
all sorts
and I think this is something that's really important to note, is that a big part of the learning experience for her in this isn't just the game and the rules, talk about the clock and stuff like that, but the way the players try and put each other off, and a little bit of gamemanship, where they're like they kind of know they can't really win, so they draw and try and bluff their way to it. Like that seems to be a running thing that they try and do.
Yeah, they try that because the first game she has in the sort of second batch, I guess it's the second round, but it's against the guy she's been kind of attracted to and been looking at, and clearly she's having these thoughts. And it's after this game where she has the first period, but during the game itself, it does almost start to feel like a weird flirtatious playing. The way, because the way she's kind of like making his rook move back over and over, and he's like, "You're starting to humiliate my rook here," and it felt flirtatious in a weird way. Now, obviously, I'd like to think he's not actually trying to flirt with a 15-year-old.
Yeah, I have no idea how old he is. This is something where it's harder because it's Anya Taylor-Joy. I know, she's roughly however old. I'm like, okay, it doesn't seem that weird just watching it, and then you have to remember, oh no, she's 15. You have to kind of actively try and remember that.
He definitely seems older. That definitely seems like a girl with a crush on an older man.
It does, yes. Which
is perfectly fine, as long as he doesn't return the affection.
Which, as of right now, he hasn't done anything wrong.
No, not at all. It's a TV show, so you worry it's going down a path. But that's more the TV's fault than this show's fault for making me.
It might still do that, and because clearly she's a very flawed character. With all the pills, for example, and we know there is this lack of understanding and desire for the sex life stuff. We're seeing bits of that. We got a bit in the first episode, and again here, where she's watching them in the make out in the library. So it wouldn't surprise me if it does go down that route as well. But again, at this point, it probably pulls it off better than most TV shows do. Yeah.
There's a lot of, again, the sexism we talked about, when the guy at the front says, there's no girls section, and then the two girls are put together and stuff. But even the newspaper article at the end, when the mum's reading, because the foster mum's not really been taking it seriously. Like, she's kind of like, she keeps trying to talk her to do more girly things. So, why don't you take a dance class or something where you can make friends? And the funny thing is, she actually does make this one friend early on, and then the guy's kind of a new friend too. She is kind of making friends, bizarrely.
She's definitely socializing.
Yeah.
But there's no argument about that.
The mum only really perks up when A, there's an article in the paper, and B, she realises there's actually prize money to be won. She never realised there was a profit to be made.
And I think she probably didn't realise that she was actually that good, because she's like, I need $5 to get in, there's $100 prize, and she's like, yeah, all right, whatever. She has no idea how good she is.
Nah. And obviously,
and in her defence as well, they are pretty low on money, so it's not like she's just being stingy about, no, you can't have $5, I'm not doing me that.
Yeah, but Beth is definitely overly confident, because the end of the episode is the mothers look through the chess magazine and say, there's a competition in Cincinnati in a couple of weeks. It'll cost this much to go there, this much to stay in a hotel. Even if you only get third place, we're still making a profit. And Beth just quietly goes, I'll win.
Which I don't know if it's coming in this next episode, but there's a major loss coming soon, right?
Oh, sure, yeah, there has to be. But it won't be because she's not good enough. It'll be because it'll be either, if not cockiness, it'll be the pill addiction, it'll be something. But there'll be a reason. Because again, we keep coming back to this idea that she's going to have to learn that it's not the pills that help her do what she does. She doesn't need them to. And the story of the show is either going to be her learning that lesson or failing to, and we're going to be upset that she doesn't, and that'll be the tragedy of it. But
Quite possibly, because even in this episode, when she's in that final chess match, and you really want her to win, you really want him to just wipe the smug smirk off his face, right? But then she has to go and get the pill to do it, and you're like, it's a bit of a hollow victory.
Well, the funny thing about it is that the chess and the pills are both kind of serving the same function. They're both crutches for her getting through tough times in her life. So in the first episode, obviously, it's the fact that she's now without parents and she's living in an orphanage, and it becomes this kind of coping mechanism. It becomes this thing she can focus on, and the pills kind of serve that function too. In this episode, it's being bullied at school. It's not fitting in. It's feeling alienated and alone. It's all these other things that are coming with it. It seems to be this constant thing. The chess is this healthy part of her life that is helping her through these things, but it's paired inherently in her own mind with this very negative element that's helping her through all these things. So,
right, and we know from the little bit at the start of the first episode that the pill thing is still going on significantly later than this, and maybe is affecting her life more, given that she was the one running late, which I think is a really nice parallel with this. The way she treats this guy for running late here, and yet we know that she gets to that stage. Where in the story that's going to be is actually quite interesting. If that's like in the next couple episodes, or if that's nearer the end.
Yeah, that was a nice parallel at that moment. I did think of that when she was sitting there waiting on him and she looked annoyed. I was like, this is interesting, because the show started with you being late for one of these games.
Yeah.
So that's good. Yeah, the pills come back into it because the mother needs it, and she keeps saying it in a really weird way. Because obviously they're tranquilizers, but she keeps saying, "Oh, I need more tranquility in my life."
Tranquility.
That was it. I need more tranquility. And then at one point she says, "My tranquility needs to be." Wasn't recharged, but it was a word like
refreshed.
That. Yeah, maybe refreshed. But
there's a few, and there was another one. It's like, I need to top up my tranquility.
Yes. Which again sounds like maybe it kind of honestly sounds like I feel really conflicted on the foster mother character, because I think in some ways she comes off as really poor at first because she just kind of keeps getting drunk and she's not paying attention to her, so it seems like she's not really fit to be doing this job. And then by the time it gets to the end, she starts to sort of like see the prospects of her chess, and she starts to get encouraged by it. It does feel like, okay, maybe she's been a little bit greedy here because she's seeing the potential to make money, but there could actually be kind of a. And I think the reason why I'm taking a bit of a positive spin on some of this is because she has this great speech at one point where when she realizes she's been left and they're going to have to lie about her still having a husband, otherwise Beth will be sent back to the orphanage. She says, look, clearly I was a shitty wife, but maybe I can learn to be a good mother. So it does actually feel like there's maybe a bit of a positive, like, oh, maybe she can be a good person in Beth's life.
I don't think she's terrible, even in this episode.
But that said, her addictions to booze and smoking and these tranquilizer pills seems to be something that in some way is just going to reinforce some of the bad habits that Beth has. I don't suspect that. I mean, maybe she will try and like have a sort of like, I made mistakes, don't you make the same mistakes I did. Maybe she'll have that speech at some point, but certainly right now it feels like all she's going to do is enforce some of these bad coping mechanisms that Beth has.
Probably. But again, I think it'll be really interesting to see how this develops, this relationship, because I don't think it's all just about the money. Like,
yeah, she
even says, I think Beth tells her, "Oh, don't you get money from the orphanage for me?" And she's like, only for the first year. So that's not really a long-term solution, for her. So and she doesn't even know about the chess at this point, really. Or she knows about the chess, but she doesn't understand the potential of the winnings yet. So the fact that she's just like, no, I want to keep her anyway, despite the very serious monetary trouble that she's in. Shows that she is definitely willing to try, and it isn't just that she's there trying to claim the money, for example.
Much like Beth herself, a very flawed character, who maybe shouldn't be doing a lot of the things she's doing, and maybe is treating Beth herself as her own like more positive coping mechanism in the same way that the chess is to Beth. Although clearly it's a little bit different in that there's not a natural like, oh, I'm great at this kind of like vibe to it, but.
No, but she's trying, and as much as we're saying, oh, it's really maybe a bit greedy that she's perking up when the when there's realizing there's winnings involved, and there's a reality that she can actually win them. There's also the fact that on from Beth's point of view, she's just being supportive. It must feel like that, right? That she's got this parental figure now that feels supportive of her passion, and that's probably going to feel like quite a good thing for her.
Yeah, and obviously it's something that she remembers her mother, and maybe someone filling that role is something that means something to her as well, on top of just the general support idea. I think the relationship is probably going to be somewhat layered, and we're going to get different elements of it where they're kind of bad for each other in some ways, but good in other ways. And it kind of remains to be seen which side it's going to lean to. But it feels like it's not. Whereas Mr. Scheibel so far feels like he's been nothing but maybe a good influence.
A little bit grumpy, perhaps, but definitely very genuine. And out of the two, definitely the better mentor figure.
Yes, but obviously he doesn't intend to be a mentor, and it's just kind of something he falls into, and and even the idea that this couple went to adopt someone to try and fill a void of a child they lost without perhaps being ready for it, and clearly they were on the verge of breaking up anyway, or the husband was on the verge of running anyway.
I wonder if, because at one point she says that it was his idea to adopt a kid. I wonder if maybe part of it is just to try and save the marriage, but also maybe it's if he does leave, he doesn't need to feel as guilty because he's not leaving her alone.
Or alternatively, if she's having to take care of a kid, she can't chase me as readily as she might have been able to.
A lot of possibilities, yeah.
Yeah. We don't get a whole lot of him. He's just kind of like grumpy and hates talking about anything. It's kind of his whole thing.
Pretty much, yeah.
But, no, it was another solid episode, and there's a lot of little directorial touches throughout that really work. I noticed them early on in the orphanage again, but as it goes throughout, there's a lot of stuff where the way it'll focus on the clock, the way it'll focus on them when they're playing chess, what it decides to, elevate.
It's really well done. Like I kind of got to the end, I didn't realize how into it I was until the credits came up. I was like, God damn it, it's over. Where's the rest of it? Where's more?
Yeah,
obviously there's more there, but
it's just well directed.
I didn't realize I was so under its spell until it finished.
Yeah. So, and I think the first half actually does have an interesting hook, because her trying to get to play chess again in some way. Is there a chess club? Try to sneak the chess magazine. Try to find a chess board. Asking, for her foster mother for a chess board. Like all these little things, and her try to find her way to get to chess again, and it not being quite easy to get to. So she's been a little bit out of reach until she's able to get obviously the saving grace comes in the $5 in the envelope, but that sort of search to get there, it does kind of feel like we compare far too many things to superhero stories, but it does kind of feel like the superhero try to get to the powers again in the second story. It kind of does. Yeah.
And I think something worth noting is we spoke a lot in the first episode about how solidly it felt like an episode of TV, not just part of a movie, even though the production value is up there with that. Unlike a lot of other Netflix shows, which do fall into that trap. And we did say, it's possible that just because it was so far removed and we're doing the flashback stuff, that was why it felt so strongly individual. But, the vast majority of this episode is, Sandy Taylor-Joy. And I do think this still felt like a very well-rounded individual episode. As much as, by the end I was like, where's the rest? That was just because I was into it.
Who's Sandy Taylor-Joy?
I said Anya.
So I like Sandy.
Sandy Taylor-Joy. And well, I definitely didn't say that. Sandy Taylor-Joy. Sandy Taylor-Joy. Sandy Taylor-Joy.
It sounded
like that, but I definitely didn't say that.
Like Sandy Taylor-Joy. I'm
going to listen to that back. Sandy Taylor-Joy.
The episode is strong again, and I think it's building an interesting relationship between her and the foster mother, which, and again, she still has this relationship with Mr. Scheibel, which obviously he isn't in a lot of this episode because she's away from the orphanage, but I do suspect we're going to see him again. At the very least, I expect him to show up to a big chess game where there's a crowd and he can come in.
I mean, the fact that she, wrote him the letter and he gave her the money back, no questions even. There wasn't even a note with it, I don't think. It was just, here's your money.
Not that
I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, I mean, there might have been one, but I mean, we didn't see
it didn't look like there was, because we did see inside the envelope. It didn't look like there was a note, and I feel like it probably would have made a point of showing us if there was. I can't imagine there's not going to be more of him, at least in a couple of episodes still.
Yeah. So there you go. That is episode 2 of The Queen's Gambit, and we will be back with episode 3 where we're going to do the whole shebang. So this was episode 2 of 7. Let us know what you think of the show in the comments. And I just to reiterate, this episode was 1 hour and 5 minutes, and it did kind of fly in. So that's a good sign of direction and pacing, because it doesn't feel at any point like it's dragging. And some of these Netflix shows do. So I think it's worth mentioning that. But anyway, get us on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month if you want to help keep all the content coming, get some bonuses for your trouble. You can support us, of course, for completely free by simply hitting the like button and subscribing and all that stuff. It does help out a lot, and YouTube will recommend us out a little bit more if you do so please do. Catch us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates, but otherwise that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?